welcome to Crush Your Mountain Wellness. Originally, I was going to call it personal growth, but I really want to tap onto the wellness aspect of it. And the reason why is because I've got with me a crazy fitness guy. So we're going to talk about the wellness aspect of it, but we're also going to talk about his personal challenge. And I really want you to meet this gentleman. Let me tell you about Mr. Jimmy Clare. Jimmy Clare was born in October 9th, Millburn, New Jersey, United States. After the birth of Jimmy, the doctors told his parents that he will not be able to walk without braces or crutches. His family took him home and loved him for who he is. He was bullied in school. From elementary school all the way up through high school. He then stood up to all the bullies and got some of them expelled. He went through 9 years of surgery and 3 surgeries in one day. One of them was for 6 wisdom teeth, 2 moles, and the last ear surgery that made number 9, so 9 of them. He just keeps proving people wrong with his persistence, time and time again. This is a determined young man, and he moves forward in life. On top of all those physical obstacles, he lives with spinal stenosis every day. For those that don't know about spinal stenosis, it's where the spine is pressing tight against on the spinal cord. Now that makes it hard for him to turn his head right and left. So now what makes him so unique, in spite of all those challenges? He is autistic, but he likes to call it slightly so, because he doesn't have it as severe as others. And he's dedicated to continuing to better himself. Every day he does what he can do to better himself by working out 6 to 9 times a week. 3 days a week, he practices kickboxing. While on the other days, he's working out on the beach body on demand. That's why they call him that crazy fitness guy. Now, to that end, he's actually decided to brand that name, that title, and he's actually he's back in April of 2020, April 12th, he started his own podcast called CrazyFitnessGuy, Healthy Living Podcast. He's almost finished with his season 1 and already preparing for another season. Let's meet this incredible young man, and dare I say, probably one of the most handsome young fellows we've had on this program to date, okay? And I say that because I know some of the girls are going, over there. Jimmy Clare, welcome to Crush Your Mountain Wellness.
Thanks for having me.
Look, man, it's a long time coming. And it's great to have you on. I know that you've dealt with a number of health issues. Why don't you just go ahead and tell us your story? We read a bit of your bio to our guests, to our friends, our viewers, and our listeners. So tell us, in your own words, some of the things you've experienced, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the wellness part of things. Go ahead.
So basically, I didn't know how to. It basically began when I was growing up. I didn't know, I wasn't reaching my milestones, and I never. Looking back at it, I don't understand why people had to set milestones for kids and everything, because I like to ask those people who set the milestones, did you reach yours? Because it's like we all, and I'll get to this point later on, but I didn't reach my milestones. I didn't know how to walk until a certain age. I forget the exact age, but the way after all the physical therapy, occupational therapy, what got me to walk was, I think we were going on a work trip with my dad, and we saw this ice cream. I saw this ice cream vendor selling ice cream in the streets, and so when I saw that, I ran after the ice cream guy, and I wanted ice cream. And and it's like, so much for all the professionals in occupational therapy and physical therapy. And it's like, ice cream was, that's what I wanted. Uh, but but uh, but that's not all. And I wasn't even speaking when I was a kid. I wasn't like understanding words. And basically, I pointed at everything. I called everything ba, like I was a sheep. And but luckily, I was smart enough to point at each object that I wanted, and my parents knew exactly uh, what I need, what I was looking for, and they got it for me. And I didn't speak until like I was around almost 3 years old. And my parents were worried. They said to, uh, and my parents were worried because they were afraid that I was never gonna be able to speak or whatnot. And my mom's friend's husband, who my mom was helping, taking him back and forth to chemotherapy, and this is like uh, early like 1990s, and and uh, and they and he said to my mom, "Don't worry about Jimmy not speaking because later on in life you'll wish he would shut up." And he was totally right because I haven't shut up since. And I think he predicted the future because I haven't shut up since, and that makes me who I am today.
Well, that's
And
amazing by itself. But now let me ask you this. Okay, you know, you learned very early in life to go after your own sweet prize. In this case, it was the ice cream. But now, what other things motivated you to keep crushing through things, keep moving forward the way you have?
well, making what kept me going was having my friends and family not look at me and say, "Oh, he's autistic. Uh, he's a slow learner." Is basically I had so-called professionals in schools basically told my parents that at me, around me, and whatnot. And ironically, I like to say my school district was slower learner than I was. And and even though that the data showed it, yeah, one of the things one of the things that they were wrong on uh, many levels. One of when I was They said I wasn't going to read higher than a second grade level, and I'm now in college, and I was like, well, you guys are way far off. Just like the first iPhone that I first had, it's like, it lasts 10 hours of battery. And it was 8 hours off, and I only watched it for 2. And I was like, somebody forgot to do the math or something, but I was just giving an example. But then when we, but they, in elementary school, because I threw a pencil in school. I don't think I directed at someone, but I threw it across the room, and I got suspended for that. And by throwing a pencil in school, and I because I got suspended, they wanted my parents to get me tested to see if I was physically uh, dangerous to society, and just for throwing a pencil. And I was like, well, it wasn't at someone's head. It wasn't at someone's direct locate. I threw it literally just straight across the room. Wasn't even at anyone. And I'm not justifying I shouldn't have done it, but I was getting taken out of classrooms, and people on the autism spectrum does not like being dragged out. I mean, it wasn't like dragged out, but we like our routines, and this didn't happen every single day. This happened like every other week, every month, every 2 months, and we're just like here and there. And they and my school and the school district, ironically enough, asked my parents, like, we don't understand why Jimmy's not cooperating. And I'm like, and my parents like literally like kind of like laughed back in their face, like, you don't understand why he's not cooperating? It's like you're dragging him out on, you're not even notifying him of what's happening. It's like you're just dragging him out and sending him to another room. And they're still like look dumbfounded on their face. I can only imagine. And it's like, and it is kind of, and just learning about this like later on in life, just out of all this, is like, man, if I was a parent, and it's like if a school district did that to my kid, I was like, "What, you stupid or what?" And like, it's like you guys are supposed to be professionals, but I guess you're. And it's like a little. Again, I'm not trying to insult everyone out there who are professionals, because I'm not trying to do that at all, but this was just in the school district who basically called me out on everything and said I was a slow learner, but it took them pretty much all the way up to uh, until I was in high school to realize that they had some faulty stuff that they needed to work on. And as I and I think I've only gotten one apology out of my whole school district on how they handled me growing up. And one of the things I also want to bring attention to about they wanted me to be deemed as dangerous to society, that they used restraint against me in elementary school, which is now illegal in 20 states. I don't know what happened to the other 30. I think they fell asleep, but what restraint is basically they took my arms in front of me, wrapped it around in front of me, and pulled from behind. And I came home with like marks on my arms. My arms were hurting. I I don't know how many times it finally took the school to my parents stepped in right away, but I don't know by how many times, because uh, I don't recall that, but they wanted me to be deemed as dangerous, and yet they're using a dangerous tactic themselves. And it's like me throwing a pencil across the room and didn't hit anyone, and you're using restraint against me. That's logic.
Well, let me ask you this. In moving in that direction, so you moved through that school. In addition to that, you were also bullied. Talk about that for a little bit.
So the bullying started in elementary school. It started with just two kids on the bus asking me questions that I didn't have answers to, and uh, and one might ask, how could that be considered bullying? Because when I didn't understand the answers, they laughed. But then, ironically, later on in life, they were in the same high school as I was, and they were actually nicer to me. So maybe they were trying to make friends, but they didn't know how to do so, and that was their way of doing so, or starting up a conversation when you're a kid. I don't know. I didn't really ask them. I just kind of was like, well, they're not being tools now, so might as well bygones be bygones. I didn't hold it against them because like, I didn't see them from like from I saw them on the bus, and then they disappeared from the bus, and then and I didn't see them since till high school. So I was like, oh, okay. But then, but then, but then there was these two girls on my bus who started kicking the seat, but that was just annoying. But then, where it started getting dangerous for me was middle school, where where two bullies were slapping the back of my neck because some person came up with a sick game. I don't even know what it was called, but it just slapped people's back of the neck in schools. And even though necks are fragile, is a fragile part of the body anyway, and but mine is even more fragile because of the spinal stenosis in the upper part of my neck. And if I get hit severely, I can be paralyzed from the shoulders down. And it took this one principal to finally figure out, after 100 reports, oh, bullying exists in this school. It was like Cornelius Fudge and Harry Potter saying, like, oh, Voldemort is back. And sorry for the spoiler alert if no one's seen it, but so if you haven't seen the Harry Potter movies by now, well, oh well, that's your fault. But
Friends, there's a movie called Harry Potter.
yes,
Actually, there are a few Harry Potter movies, aren't there?
yeah,
Yeah.
about 7.
I lean towards the Marvel stuff myself. That and Frank Herbert's Dune. But you know what? I'll tell you something. You've been through a lot there. I know what that is. One thing about me is I've always hated when people are picked on, especially when they have some sort of circumstance in their life that's always challenged me. Another secret about me is years and years and years ago, when I was maybe a few years older than you are now, I actually worked with individuals who were either high functioning or were autistic. And so, my heart goes out to that, to that population. So what do you do? Because you are the crazy fitness guy. Okay, what do you do? And when did you start doing things to improve your body, which in turn improved your mind?
Well, I started to improve that when I stood up to the bullies in 2011. I was in my math class, and I and I stood up to the bullies because uh, I knew my school wasn't doing the very best job, because like, oh, well, you can suspend the bullies. That's a vacation for them. You can school detention. That's another vacation for them. Uh, y- and I was like, okay, there's really no good punishment for these bullies at all. And it's like, well, we can send them home. They didn't want to be in school in the first place. And like, maybe their parents will make their life miserable, but then they just come back and make my life more miserable. So it's a lose-lose situation. So me and my dad were watching this infomercial on TV, and it was just I think it was like 60 seconds long, and it was for Beachbody. I mean P90X, and which is owned by Beachbody and Tony Horton, and my me and my dad tried to lose weight before, didn't really have success, and my parents got me a personal trainer to come to my house, but the personal trainer, ironically, also he was heavy himself, and he's like, I'm here to help you lose weight. And it's like, um, no offense, but is this kind of a joke? Or, and it's like, you're telling me I need to lose some. I mean, I
You
didn't
hate
say this
that
at
though?
all. So
Don't you hate that though?
this was just going on in my mind.
No, but you're right. You try to practice what you preach. And whenever I see someone who is a fitness trainer or a health coach, I expect them to look healthy. I expect them to be fit. Okay, it doesn't. I used to walk into gyms just like that. You see the guy say personal trainer, and he looked like he needed to be personally trained. If you get my drift, right? So now tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about that. So you and your dad started to do the P90X. Is that what happened? Or
Yeah, and so when we saw after the info commercial, he ordered it. It took a few days to get there to our house. It's a box. It's a set of DVDs, uh, and this was before Beachbody On Demand existed, which has all the workout programs from it. But this was a DVD collection, and so it's a program that goes 90 straight days. You only get 1 day of work, 1 day of rest, or you can do yoga. I'm going to admit this. Me and my dad always took the rest days and not do yoga only because it was an hour and 30 minutes of yoga. And for me, I mean, some people find yoga peaceful, where I've gotten better of doing yoga over the years, but it's still not my most favorite thing. But I like short versions of it, like 20 minutes I can do, 30 minutes I can do. But past the hour mark, and they start getting into twists where I can't do because of my spinal stenosis. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna skip the rest of this. And it's like, give me 20, 30 minutes, I'll do it. But anything 60 minutes and an hour later, like, no, thank you. I'm done. Uh, but so after the first week, after the first week of that program, I felt like I was crawling. Me and my dad were literally crawling up the stairs because as we didn't know we had muscles in certain places of the body. It's like, I didn't know I had this muscle in the body. This hurts like heck. And so by the halfway mark, I saw that my clothes wasn't fitting me anymore. And I was like a medium to a large back then. Now I'm a small and everything.
Wow.
And unless there's like certain sizes where like the medium is the small, right? Because clothing doesn't always, depending on what the material is, sometimes you need to get the one extra up to make it fit. And but so when the clothes stopped fitting the correct way, my parents got me some new clothes, and that's when I decided, I want to get something that fits my body. And so when I got all this clothes, I felt good, and I saw myself in the mirror, and it's like, I was like, I felt confident, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know I had muscles, and it's like, this is cool. And it's like, wait until the bullies see me. And so the next day when went into school, I had long debates in my head on where I wanted to confront the bullies, because I didn't want to do it in the hallway. I didn't want to get physical with them, even though I knew how to defend myself from karate all the years ago. But I was like, no, I don't want to get physical with them because it's literally going to be 3 against 1, and I don't like the odds. And it's like, but how they always tell you, take out the leader, then the other two will kind of like will leave you alone. But I was like, still, I don't like the odds. And so I decided to do a math class that like 15 minutes left of math class. Uh, and I admit that it wasn't the nicest thing to do to interrupt math class, but it was winding down. We were working on our own computers in math class. So I was like, well, it's not like someone was teaching, I mean, like the teacher was like just writing stuff on the board. So it's not like I was completely interrupting everything. And so one of my friends who happened to be in a wheelchair, uh, she was just leaving their classroom, and these doors were like this, like wide, can't even fit in an electric wheelchair to it, barely. And she bumped into the door, and it was controlled by one of those droid sticks on it. And the bully started laughing, and it really irritated me because I, I, my math teacher, he just told the bullies to stop doing that. And it's like, that's not nice. And the bullies still snickered and everything. It's like, really? What's wrong with them? And like, how's that funny? A wheelchair person, my friend in a wheelchair, who happens to be in for life, uh, she's she bumped into the door frame. And I was like, it's not her fault that the door is too narrow. And so it kind of pissed me off. And it happened a few more times. And I decided, and it's like, that's not right. And it's like, I'm going to go do something about it. I slammed the computer shut, and I went over to the bullies, and before when I got to the halfway point to the bullies, and my teacher looked up and was like, "Jimmy," I was like, Go sit back down." I was like, "Hold on a second." I went over to the bullies. I looked them dead in the face, and I think, if I remember correctly, they both looked at each other. All three of them looked at each other like, "What is he gonna do?" I literally lost it on them. I yelled, I cursed, I screamed. I called them every word in the book you can probably imagine at the time. And I admit I probably shouldn't use any of those words, but I was completely pissed off. And this was been going on 8 years in a row, and but by from all different kinds of bullies. And by and at when that was over, I basically was sent home. I was sent down to the principal's office, and the principal heard what happened, and she's like, "Jimmy, you're not in trouble." And it's like, out of all the stuff I did, I'm not even in trouble. She's like, "You stuck up to your friends." And it's like, yeah, and it's like, I was like, "What's there to be in trouble for?" And it's like, "You use some bad language." And it's like, "I've heard it in the hallway all the time." And it's like, "Whoopee do." I was like, "Welcome to being an adult." And I was like, "Oh," and like, "I'm not used to this." And it's like, "Wish I get in trouble for every gosh darn thing I do in my school district lately."
So tell me something. What was it like then afterwards? How did they treat you? How did they treat you afterwards, that incident?
The bullies or the school district?
The bullies.
Uh, well, the next day they tried to do it one more time, but then one of them actually got expelled finally, and they and once they heard that one, that bully got expelled and they had to go to a different school district, they try and make a truce with me, and it's like, "Do you want to be friends?" And it's like, "No, just leave me the hell alone and we'd be good." And it's like, "Okay," and so they left me the hell alone for the rest of 11th grade and 12th grade. And it's like, huh. I was like, now we got an understanding from each other. In 12th grade, uh, me and them just talked friendly, but I still didn't like them. But we made friendly conversations, but I wouldn't like, just as like a polite nod or hey or whatever, but was never something ex like an extended amount of time I was with them because I didn't like any of them. And
Yeah.
but how I jumped into but the fitness helped me to start, but what I'm doing now. But what really helped me start was my very first interview, 139 interviews earlier. They my I went from like being very shy on camera to I'm very outspoken. Like you could I still have the interview on my YouTube channel, and it was so you couldn't barely even hear what I had to say. I was like, and I was like, geez, 139 interviews later, here I am, and but but how I got into it, I started my brand in 2017. But when I was in college, I'm in college, I started as a going to personal training, and but because I didn't, because math and science do not go together in my head very well, I jumped my I jumped majors 5 times, which annoyed my parents. And I was like, well, at least I did this in community college and a 4-year school. And it's like, okay, fine. And so now I'm in media studies, uh, and I'm majoring in well, I'm majoring in media studies, but I'm more on the study side instead of the production side. And right now I'm in my public speaking class, which I'm enjoying, and I like my I like my video. I find the video production class interesting to a point, but I just know that I do not want to really be editing videos for the rest of my life or my rest of my career. And
So
because,
would you prefer public speaking?
yeah, and it's like I want to. So I'm a motivational speaker and an autism advocate. And when I jumped, when I changed my major, I knew I had because when I was going to personal training, I was thought I was going to be another health and wellness website on the internet. Well, instead of changing the brand name and rebranding totally because I like the name, I decided to just rebrand the wording a little bit. And I decided I decided to make it motivational and inspirational instead of just and and provide healthy living information for my autistic guys that has worked for me. And there's some days, and I'll admit that, I usually, I try to follow all my advice, but there's some days where it doesn't always go my way. For example, last night, I usually try to go to bed around like 10:30ish. Last night was more like 11:30ish because uh, my allergies were kicking my butt, and I was out of allergy medicine, and so I was like, "This is not going to be a pleasant sleep." And then so I was finishing like two small, quick work projects on my website, and like by quick I mean it didn't even take long. It didn't take hours. It really took maybe 20 minutes tops. But I was like, well, since I didn't go to karate because of my allergies, I want to get something done because I was just feeling frustrated. It's like, I got all my schoolwork done. I got everything else. I got other stuff done on my to-do list, but I did not get to these extra projects that are hanging over my head, just dangling in front of me. Jimmy, you know what I had to do today?
Well, let me ask you this, what is your routine like that keeps you healthy, that keeps you keeps you going? And what can you tell others who may have similar situations that can also help them? Are there any particular exercises that you like to do that give you a good positive feeling? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, basically, what helps me is I do everything. I do a lot of workouts on Beach by On Demand, which has like all, I think they're up to like 900 workout programs in total now. And they, and I've been using that since, I think pretty much since they came out. And I, I think I forget when it came out, but I like working out. I can work out wherever I am on the go. And
So you don't use weights. It sounds like you use more like a body weight.
no, I use weights. I use resistance bands because I work out in my room, my basement, because me and my parents moved. We just like a few months ago to our new, just downsizing, and our basement is still kind of in wreck. I mean, not wreck, but I mean it's messy, and so I still have plenty aside in my smaller room over here and behind me to work out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use bands, and I feel like I get a better workout with bands because with weights you can do a little cheating, trying to do like, oh look, I can swing the weights a little bit more. Well, with bands, nope. It's extra resistance, and I actually got to 45 pounds total. I was like, ouch.
Wow. Well, you've been through a lot. And the thing about it is you have continued to move forward at every step of the way, whether it's through numerous surgeries and dealing with just learning to walk, dealing with just learning to talk, to dealing with bullies in school. But here you are now. You've started your podcast. You have a brand. You've got the Crazy Fitness Guy swag out there that people can get. And interestingly enough, you travel, you do some motivational speaking as well. Then you're in school now as well, you're in college. So these are amazing strides that proves that anyone, regardless of their circumstances, can accomplish what they wish if they continue to move forward. You know, I really appreciate how you do that, man. You're already like a son to me. You see, a very, very, very lighter son than I normally would have, but it's amazing to have you with us and just to hear a bit of your story. I know you've got tons of other things to share, but Jimmy Clare, I want to ask you this one question before we wrap up. In all of that you've experienced so far, and I know you have a long life ahead, Jimmy Clare, what does it mean to you to crush your mountain?
Well, what it means for me, I like to keep proving people wrong, and no offense to people out there, but I enjoy proving people wrong. I enjoy proving just all the naysayers wrong, and keeps me going. And one of my friends slash colleague of mine said to me once, it's like, well, you can't just have that as your motivational, that motivates you. And it's like, you gotta have something else that drives your fire. And I was like, but that's been driving my fire for all 28 years of my life so far. It's not gonna stop. And it's like, if it stops, well, then I'm kind of screwed. And it's like, I get it. And like, there's other stuff that motivates me along the way, but I like proving people wrong. I like proving companies wrong. And yeah, it's, I get enjoyment out of it a little bit. I don't know if that makes me a sick person, but.
A sick person, I don't know. Because the fact of the matter is that you have to prove yourself to yourself. And in doing so, Jimmy, when you come across a challenge, who are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the naysayers, or are you going to listen to the person that says, yeah, I'm going to do this? That's you. We already have the negative speech inside our heads. We have our limiting beliefs. Isn't that right? So we have that. But the most important thing is that you yourself are able to put down the naysayer in your mind and those other individuals that snicker behind your back, that laugh at you, that say that you will not accomplish anything, that say that you cannot do it because of your own situations. To prove them wrong is indeed not just a goal for yourself, but really, sir, it's a responsibility, because it's a testament to others as to what they can accomplish if they put aside the naysayer and just move forward. Listen, I want to thank you again for being with us. Friends, I want to thank everyone here that's tuning in, that's listening in to this podcast. We're going to have other guests coming up. Jimmy Clare is just one of them. We can find him. Tell us where we can find you at, Jimmy.
The best place you can find me is at CrazyFitnessGuy.com, or just look for my podcast, which is literally every single place you can possibly imagine. I went a little overboard. I'm only on 100 plus platforms.
Wow. Well, hopefully that we'll get to your level one day. But again, just think about what you've accomplished and think about what Jimmy has accomplished, because it shows that regardless of the obstacle, that you have the ability to make it through. You don't listen to the attitudes of others. If it takes you a while to walk, but just keep walking. If it takes you a while to lift up your hammer, do the work and get that hammer lifted. If it takes you a while to start chipping away at the challenge that you face. You chip away and keep moving, because every single crush, every single strike is going to make that obstacle smaller. It's going to make the tunnel bigger. And I'm going to tell you, friends, like I always say every week, don't just climb your mountain, crush it. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so very much, Jimmy.
Thank you.